What is happening, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back to review Wes Anderson's new movie, The Phoenician Scheme, which is in limited release right now in 6 theaters, but going into wider release this coming weekend. So I'll go spoiler-free initially, but toward the end of the video, if I go into any specifics, I'll give you a verbal warning as well as a time code down below. But let's get the easy stuff out of the way first. I enjoyed The Phoenician Scheme, and no one is more surprised than I, because I went into the movie fully expecting to loathe and despise it. So much so I was kind of almost looking forward to loathing and despising it, sharpening my knives in advance, almost kind of pre-preparing certain talking points to just rip it to shreds. And there's an expression out there that I love, and I'm often guilty of this behavior, but it goes as such: often wrong, but never in doubt, because I'm often guilty of looking at a poster or watching a trailer and prejudging the movie in advance, assuming it's going to be a masterpiece or terrible or whatever, and then stubbornly clinging to my initial assumption in spite of whatever fresh evidence might be presented to me. And this is one of those movies where I was fully prepared to just completely, totally hate it, like, relishing the opportunity to talk all kinds of shit, because those videos are fun to make. But it's fun to be wrong when a movie is better than you expected. Like, every time I go to the movies and spend money on what I'm about to see, obviously one should hope for the best possible experience. Life is short, and terrible movies kind of diminish the overall experience. Although sometimes it's fun to see a terrible movie just to have an opportunity to throw some daggers and that sort of thing. But happily, The Phoenician Scheme is going to turn out to be one of the more enjoyable movies of the year. And so far, playing in just 6 theaters, it's doing very well. It's got a higher per theater average than any other movie released this year so far. Friendship was the previous record holder for its first week, and I think that opened in either 4 or 6 as well. But in any case, Phoenician Scheme is off to a very strong start. The question now remains, did all the fans of Wes Anderson go see it in the opening weekend in Los Angeles and New York, or can it expand to a wider audience and enjoy greater success than Wes Anderson's previous movie? But if you're wondering why I had so much misplaced hostility toward this movie in advance, there's certain ingredients in Wes Anderson's signature style that now have me kind of screaming in horror. And this is coming from somebody where, in the late 90s when I was in college, if I was told you can attend the funeral of your entire family which just died in a plane crash or go see the latest Wes Anderson movie, I probably would have chosen the latest Wes Anderson movie. I was totally obsessed. Bottle Rocket came out when I was, a sophomore, and then Rushmore when I was either a junior or senior. In any case, I was primed and ready to be like the perfect target audience for Wes Anderson, and I leaned all the way into my obsession with his work at that time. And I still think The Royal Tenenbaums is his best movie. But there's a certain rigidity to his style as of late, almost like it's kind of locked in amber, where I just want to scream at Wes Anderson, like, please, for once, just give us a break from that very predictable, symmetrical style and stop making all of your characters eccentric geniuses, because at this point, we've been watching these movies for like 28 years. Like, put some dumbasses back in your movies. Like, Bottle Rocket has plenty of dumbasses, and I think Bottle Rocket has endured in popularity as a result of the fact that not everybody is like a genius architect or a genius playwright or a genius criminal or whatever kind of genius, but all of his characters tend to be geniuses. So when I saw the trailer for Phoenician Scheme, I was like, ugh, another one of those movies. But the movie that I thought was going to be kind of whimsical and annoying turned out to be kind of whimsical but also funny. Like, Mark Kermode has this famous 6 laugh test, where if a movie makes you involuntarily laugh 6 times or more, then it's passing the 6 laugh test. In this movie, I stopped counting how many times it made me laugh after like 20 or 25 minutes. Then I just sat back and enjoyed the ride. And ironically, it was Mark Kermode who had me kind of dreading the movie in advance due to his withering review. And the way he described it over on his channel was that The Phoenician Scheme was un film de Wes Anderson, and he was meaning that very condescendingly, like it was self-consciously arty, self-consciously pretentious, and just insufferable and unendurable. And I think that's probably why I enjoyed The Phoenician Scheme more than I thought I would, because I went into it with rock-bottom expectations. And also, it doesn't help that The Asteroid City is my least favorite Wes Anderson movie, so my expectations have lowered as of late. But much to my surprise and delight, like within the first 5 minutes, there was an act of such grotesque and extreme and sudden and comedic violence. I was like, whoa! And it kind of disarmed me. And then there were more sudden, extreme, abrupt acts of violence. I was like, all right, like I can get on this movie's wavelength. Like, the more knives and hand grenades and guns and crossbows and explosions and assassinations and all that stuff, the better. It's a really, really violent movie, but it's also a very lighthearted movie, and so I have no problems with sitting back and enjoying a movie that is obscenely violent from start to finish, but also kind of a lighthearted romp. But here's the official premise, ripped straight from the pages of IMDb. Wealthy businessman Zsa Zsa Corda appoints his only daughter, a nun, as sole heir to his estate. As Corda embarks on a new enterprise, they soon become the target of scheming tycoons, foreign terrorists, and determined assassins. And so at the core of this movie, you basically have Benicio del Toro, Mia Threepleton, if I'm saying her last name correctly. She's the daughter of Kate Winslet, as well as Michael Cera, this kind of unlikely trio traveling to all these fictional locations, trying to put together like the ultimate project of this ultimate tycoon, where it's kind of a mix of shipping lanes and canals and new train tunnels and new dams. It's just like the ultimate architectural ambition of his that will be his crowning achievement after a lifetime of many astonishing achievements. But over the course of his lifetime of impressive achievements, he's accumulated many enemies, and some of these people are exotic billionaires, and some of them are like full-blown nations like the United States, and they're all plotting and scheming to try to stop the Phoenician Scheme from coming to fruition. And so throughout the course of the movie, he's basically traveling from one place to another, putting together his team of investors and backers to make this project a reality. And the novelistic structure works. Like, it's definitely got a chapter with its own unique set of characters, another chapter with its own unique set of characters, and some of those chapters are really strong, and a few of them are kind of weak, but overall it's a very enjoyable structure with a very satisfying conclusion, and now we can debate which settings and which characters we found to be the most interesting. Now, as far as how it compares to the rest of Wes Anderson's work, I typically divide Wes Anderson's features into the categories of like the first tier, the movies that I've watched a million times over, where I don't even know how many times I've seen them. Then there are the unwatchable movies, like the self-consciously arty, pretentious movies like Asteroid City that I find unendurable. And then there are the movies in the middle that I like, but I don't feel compelled to revisit over and over and over again. And I would say that this movie, let's go in reverse order. It is better than Asteroid City by a mile. It is better than The French Dispatch, although it doesn't have any of those lovely scenes that we saw with Léa Seydoux in that movie, which are basically the only thing I remember from that movie. I'd say it's better than Isle of Dogs. Maybe not better than the Grand Budapest Hotel. I feel like the Grand Budapest Hotel is one of Wes Anderson's biggest successes. It made hundreds of millions of dollars. There's no performance in this movie on the level of Ralph Fiennes in that. Moonrise Kingdom might be a fair comparison in terms of overall quality, in terms of certain characters you like, certain characters you don't. A story that you can get into, but is like, maybe a little more uneven. But I do like Moonrise Kingdom, and I do like The Phoenician Scheme. This movie is not as good as Fantastic Mr. Fox, which I put in the first tier of one of Wes Anderson's best. This movie is definitely better than The Darjeeling Limited, which I find to be insufferable, apart from the opening. It opens, like, for the first 5 minutes, it's like, this is the most kick-ass, phenomenal movie that I've ever seen, and then it just dissolves into, anyway, a movie that I do not enjoy. Maybe The Phoenician Scheme is not on the level of The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, but I don't place that on the level of the Holy Trinity of The Royal Tenenbaums, Rushmore, and Bottle Rocket. And I know people get tired of hearing this comparison, but those first three movies, which were co-written with Owen Wilson, you can tell that Wes Anderson was trying to write those movies in a way where his college friends, his circle of friends, would laugh and enjoy it.
What the hell are you wearing?
Yeah.
It's a jumpsuit.
Clay, look at this guy.
He looks like a rodeo clown.
He looks like a little banana. Where are you from anyway, man?
I'm from around here.
This guy used to mow our lawn.
And I feel like the worst thing that ever happened to Wes Anderson's career was that he started regularly, not always, or not exclusively, but regularly collaborating with Roman Coppola as his screenwriting partner as opposed to Owen Wilson. Owen Wilson just brought out different qualities in Wes Anderson. And he might argue, well, I've matured, I've changed as an artist, blah, blah, blah. I've got other stories I don't want to tell. Fine, more power to you, but I don't have to like your new movies as much as those first three. And some might argue, well, maybe you just like those so much because of your age at that time. Fair play, that could also be a factor, but I just think they're more enjoyable. They just have better characters.
Hold it, Chazzy. Hold it right there.
What are you doing? You're on my team.
There are no teams.
Ah!
And they're so goddamn funny that they make me like scream in laughter, whereas this new movie, I just kind of lightly harumphed or chuckled periodically where I was enjoying it, but I wasn't cracking up and holding on to my insides like I used to with those first three Wes Anderson movies. But the most obvious explanation as to why this movie worked for me was that Benicio del Toro, Mia Threepleton, and Michael Cera make a great team. They have incredible chemistry. They're so different But it's interesting seeing how the character played by Mia slowly but surely starts to take on certain characteristics that are reminiscent of her father. I mean, he is a ruthless businessman who chain smokes cigars, and just as the old expression goes, if something gets in your way, flatten it. That's kind of his attitude, where just there's no obstacle too insurmountable where he can't just stampede right over it. It's a little bit like he's Royal Tenenbaum, but whereas Royal Tenenbaum's career ended in failure and disaster, this guy, he just is always like, there's no plane crash that he can't survive, no assassination attempt that he can't survive. He encounters success whether he wants to or not every step of the way, but it's through this heroic act of will. But his daughter is a nun, but slowly but surely she starts to show the I guess like a little family resemblance in terms of her personality traits. And Michael Cera's character, without giving away any spoilers, he is such just a lovable, nerdy little goober obsessed with insects that sort of thing, that he is just the complete and total polar opposite of Benicio del Toro's character, and he's kind of just helpless before the charisma, charm, and just physical appeal of Mia Threepleton's character, and slowly but surely falls in love with her. And so this trio is definitely one of the most lovable trios in the history of Wes Anderson that we've seen in a very, very long time. But let me tap the brakes a bit so that I'm not guilty of overselling the movie to the same degree that I was underselling it in advance of seeing it. And there's a word that my friend Ronald Meyer likes to use when describing the worst excesses or qualities of Wes Anderson's signature style. And the word is twee, which is defined as excessively or affectedly quaint, pretty, or sentimental. I wouldn't describe this movie as sentimental, but there are definitely scenes and moments where it's trying so hard to be quaint and pretty, where just all the little old-fashioned devices, like old-fashioned telephones on planes. Obviously, in the world of Wes Anderson, it's kind of like you're permanently locked in this fictional country in Europe in the 20s or 30s, a country that doesn't exist, but the technology never evolves or changes in any of his movies. But you're completely in a world of his own creation and his own imagination. But there are times where he's so obsessed with all of his little props and his production design and that sort of thing, it feels a little bit like a little girl playing with her dollhouse and her dolls, as opposed to somebody trying to tell a story. But he doesn't completely lean into it. Like, whatever your least favorite Wes Anderson movie might be, it probably leans into being a little bit twee. But perhaps the middle ground between twee and outright hilarious is a word like whimsical, which is playfully quaint or fanciful. There are a lot of scenes in this movie that are whimsical, but not really funny. But if you love Wes Anderson, you'll find the scenes charming. But if you've grown to despise some ingredients of his signature style, you'd be like, please stop being whimsical or I'm going to murder everybody in this fucking theater. Although my theater was very safe. There were 3 people in the theater. 2 of them were howling with laughter. Actually, well, 3 apart from me, but 2 that were howling with laughter. 1 that was totally mute, and I was kind of lightly chuckling. And I imagine there'll be plenty of people who are completely mute while watching this, like, I'm so fucking sick of Wes Anderson. I never want to see one of his movies ever again. And then you've got your diehard Wes Anderson fans who've never seen a Wes Anderson movie that they don't like. But I think it's one of the reasons it's so easy to do parodies of his work now, or satires of his work these days, is that his style has become a little bit predictable, and I think that's going to be a problem for him moving forward. It's a little bit like Robert Altman in the 1970s, where he made a ton of movies in the 70s, and when he was great, he was one of the best American directors who ever lived. But when he was bad, I mean, no one could be worse than Robert Altman. And what's crazy, he was so prolific in that decade that he made enough movies where that decade was both the best as well as the worst decade of his entire career. And that's hard to do. But if you make 13 movies in 10 years, well, then there's going to be a lot of evidence for either argument. But Wes Anderson, this movie does give me hope for the future, where I feel like not that he'll kind of outgrow his signature style, but that he will add additional wrinkles and facets, because toward the end of the movie, and I guess this is a mild spoiler, or it's nothing related to the plot, but it's a spoiler in terms of technique. So last warning, 3, 2, 1. He actually does break the symmetry of his shots for once, and it was like my eyes had a little miniature orgasm with relief just to have something different to look at, like shooting something at a 45-degree angle and having the actors kind of descending into the background. I was like, oh, I could just feel like the muscles in my eyes relaxing, just getting some variety with the way that he frames his shots. And when you watch the trailer for the movie or look at some of the posters for the movie, it's easy to assume the worst. The first time I saw the poster for Benedict Cumberbatch's character for this movie, I took one look at it and I was like, ugh. I was like, this represents the absolute worst, the most predictable ingredients of Wes Anderson's style. And I thought in advance that I might hate and loathe the character. He actually did have a few surprises in store for me, but that look, when I talk about what people have come to loathe and despise with Wes Anderson, it's characters that look like that. The mad, eccentric geniuses that have been, successful in every aspect of life and are just like full of all these little idiosyncrasies that might be adorable if we hadn't seen characters like that 1,000 times over the last 25, 30 years throughout Wes Anderson's movies. And when you look at the cast overall for this movie, it's definitely a mix of good, bad, and mediocre because every single role in this movie is played by an important actor or a recognizable face or name, where it doesn't matter how insignificant the role is. It doesn't matter how much, even if it's like a background waiter standing in the corner, it's like, oh, that's F. Murray Abraham. He doesn't play a waiter, but like you get what I'm talking about. Like Salieri himself is in this movie, but in a pretty insignificant role. It's like maybe you could have just hired an extra at $50 a day. On the other hand, Wes Anderson has had the privilege of working with so many astonishing actors. I get it that he wants to keep all of his friends and collaborators close, and I'm sure the atmosphere on the set is an absolute blast, but at times when you're watching the movie, like if everybody's a movie star, it's just like, wait, what's going on? Like, is that an important character or not? Or is that someone totally disposable? And there's some performances that regrettably are a little flat or just underwritten. Like Scarlett Johansson, I love and adore her, but her character is kind of bland. Or Willem Dafoe, love and adore him, his part's kind of bland. But there are enough actors who really get to soar where, like Bryan Cranston and Tom Hanks make a really, really funny duo. They're great together. Who else is in here? I mean, like the cast is so big, it's almost impossible to keep track of all of them. All right, I'm taking a quick glance over on Wikipedia at the ridiculously large cast just to see who made a lingering impression. Bill Murray. He pops up in a role very suitable to him. Charlotte Gainsbourg has a memorable little role. Who else? Jeffrey Wright's both horrible and great all at once. It's bizarre. Like it's like one line will be brilliant, and the next you're like, ugh, like chill, like tap the brakes. Riz Ahmed is actually really good in this. Who else can I mention? And Matthew Amalric, I'm sure I'm saying his name incorrectly. He's French, but you'll recognize him from 100 million movies, but he plays Marseille Bob. He's fantastic as well. And what I like about all the interactions in this movie is that because everybody is a completely, totally ruthless, unscrupulous businessman, like there's a mix of gentlemanly conduct with like the exchange of gifts and cigars and exotic cocktails and that sort of thing, as well as a lot of like screaming matches. It's a consistent source of great comedy, seeing all these incredibly powerful, egotistical businessmen and politicians and all their various competing interests colliding into one another as Zsa Zsa Corda is trying to do his best to bring his ultimate dream project to fruition. So, yeah, I guess maybe I could just describe this movie as like the ultimate 50-50 movie. For every great scene or performance that you're going to really enjoy, there'll be another scene or performance you're like, oh, that kind of didn't land on its feet to the degree that it should. But it's just a relief to see Wes Anderson back more or less on semi-firm footing. Is he in the top tier with Fantastic Mr. Fox and Royal Tenenbaums and Rushmore and Bottle Rocket? Nope. But he's definitely not in the bottom tier. I mean, like some of these recent movies, I've just been like, oh, dude, like I almost feel like Wes Anderson at times needs just like a palate cleanser where he finds a topic or a movie like warfare, like, really gritty, immersive, realistic Iraq war movie where he would try to let the subject matter dictate the style as opposed to imposing his style on the subject matter. And it'll just be an interesting creative exercise. Like, can he make a movie that is completely, totally unrecognizable as a Wes Anderson movie? Kind of like when Woody Allen made Match Point. When Match Point came along, it was totally different and completely like unlike anything Woody Allen had made up to that point. After decades of making all these romantic comedies and more or less a kind of a locked-in signature style, Match Point came along and it was a new setting, new tone. It was a sexy thriller set in England, totally different from anything he'd done before. And I think Wes Anderson at this point, now that he's got basically like 30 years of films under his belt, he is due for a creative reset, even if it's just for one movie. But because I had never seen Mia Threepleton in any movie before, her performance and her character at least felt incredibly fresh to me. She's got a great deadpan sense of humor. She totally gets kind of the Wes Anderson style, but it's not like the rigid, predictable style. Like she and Benicio del Toro really, they work well off one another, and it's almost like a ping pong match, slinging lines back and forth. And so, yeah, they had a great rapport. And so I hope she'll continue to work and give us great performances in the years to come. What else has she done? Oh, she's been working for years, but in any case, she's got a tough act to follow, being the daughter of Kate Winslet, but we shall see what the future might hold. But judging from her performance in this movie, I think the future is going to be very bright for her. So in closing, I'll simply say it's a relief to be wrong when I get to have an unexpectedly enjoyable movie-going experience. I wasn't doing cartwheels coming out of the theater, but I did have fun with it, and I will see it again at some point. I probably won't rush back to the Angelica to see it this week, but if you are a Wes Anderson enthusiast, definitely see it in the theater this week. And it's also nice just to have some counter-programming to all the big franchises coming out for the summer movie season. And during the summer, obviously, we expect to see dinosaurs and superheroes and spaceships and cartoons and all that kind of stuff. But it's nice to have some auteur-driven cinema as well. But I guess at a certain point, filmmakers become so recognizable and have so many fans, they become franchises unto themselves, like Paul Thomas Anderson or Quentin Tarantino or Christopher Nolan or Wes Anderson or Guillermo del Toro or whomever, Ryan Coogler. They're definitely filmmakers where they have a stock company of actors that they work with and a lot of collaborators that they work with over and over and over again. And people start to just think of like their entire body of work as an ongoing franchise, even if the movies have unrelated subjects or stories. So Wes Anderson is a franchise, whether he likes it or not, but obviously it's what the experience he offers is going to be quite different from, say, Ballerina, which I'll be seeing on Wednesday. And it's nice just to see the Wes Anderson franchise continuing, with plenty of, like a lightning bolt, plenty of peaks and valleys and ups and downs. Who knows? Maybe his next movie will be the best goddamn movie that he's ever made. I'm maybe a little bit skeptical, but I like to believe that he's got one more movie on the level of Royal Tenenbaums in his back pocket for later on down the road. And so I remain a perpetual optimist when it comes to Wes Anderson, even if he makes the occasional movie like Asteroid City, where I want to claw out my eyes and tear my ears off. So on that note, or on that lovely image, I'm going to wrap this sucker up. If you enjoyed the video, remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Hope everybody has a great week, and I'll be back at you with the latest on Wednesday with my review for Ballerina. But thanks again for watching, but more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.